Hello, and welcome to CreatingAFamily.org's Weekend Wisdom podcast. I'm Tracy Whitney, the content manager at Creating a Family, and I'm glad to be your host today. Weekend Wisdom is a short podcast where we share our expert-based resources, life experiences, and practical advice to help you work through a question that you've sent us. So if you have a question about adoption, foster care, or kinship care, please send it to info@creatingafamily.org. We'll comb through our archives and work out an answer that hopefully strengthens your family. We also offer an online community that is active and welcoming and inclusive of all members of the adoption, foster, and relative caregiving community. You can find us at facebook.com/groups/creatingafamily. You'll learn there with others about meeting the needs of the kids that you're raising in your home, and you'll have an opportunity to build community that supports and encourages you and helps you be the best for the children that you have in front of you. Today's topic is a compilation of several questions that we hear quite frequently from waiting parents, both by email and in our online community. Many waiting parents don't know when to prepare a nursery, what formula is best, or how often they should expect to feed their new baby. It's understandable because there's a lot of questions involved in bringing home a baby, and many of you have never done this before. I love helping new families find their way. Welcoming a new baby, whether it's by infant adoption or by foster care, is a huge life transition, and I count it an honor to come alongside families like yours to help you figure out some of the nitty-gritty practical things. I've gathered up a few basic baby care tips that will help you think about what's next for you and your family once you get that baby home. First, let's talk about setting up your nursery. When you are waiting for a baby through infant adoption, your agency or social worker very well often has insight on what this should look like for you and your family. Timing, things that you might need depending on the baby that you've agreed to take placement for, and even if they don't have those kinds of tips and insights for you, there's a couple things that are helpful to consider. First, are you a planner? I am a planner. I need to plan as far in advance as I possibly can. However, infant adoption and welcoming a baby through foster care that may have been in the hospital before they've come to you is a whole nother ball of wax. So think about whether or not you're a planner. Do you feel soothed and calmed by physical preparations? Does it make you feel anxious or in suspense to have physical preparations already done, especially if you don't know the timing of when the baby is coming home? If you have a partner, what is their take on all of this? Depending on your answers and or your partner's answers, setting up the baby's space in advance can be very helpful in making your next steps feel real. The second question to consider is, can you afford your plans right now? Should you space out those purchases and the decorating over a longer stretch of time so that you can manage your adoption expenses? Financial stress can significantly impact your ability to enjoy the baby in the early days that you bring them home, whether it's by foster care or adoption. You should consider setting up a budget for what you think you can afford for this baby's space, what you maybe are dreaming of, and then maybe what you can actually do and how they're different and what the gap between the two is. And talk about it with your partner if you have one. They may have a very different take on how to handle that kind of financial stress. A third thing to consider is, how short notice do you think this placement will happen? For example, many hopeful foster parents who are open to fostering a newborn may get the big call for an immediate placement, and so having just a bassinet and a few key items on hand is the bare necessities you need to get through the first few days. On the other hand, you might have some long-term notice, especially if the baby is in the hospital withdrawing from opioids or other substances, and so you'll have a little bit of time to get some of those necessities in place. And try to remember, no matter what, babies need a lot less at the beginning than you think they need. Really, a place to sleep, some clean diapers, food, and that kind of thing. There's a lot more to cover when we're thinking about planning a baby's room, and so you might enjoy the article, "I'm Adopting a Baby, When Do I Set Up the Nursery?" on our website. We will link it in the show notes for you. Next, let's talk a little bit about baby care. Three of the most basic elements of baby care are feeding, sleeping, and crying. So we're going to talk about those three very briefly, and there's more resources linked in our show notes to help you go into each of those items in more depth. When you are thinking about feeding the baby, it's most common for adoptive and foster parents to be feeding with formula. And so consider what the hospital or the former foster parents have been using with this baby. Many formulas come in both ready-made liquid and powder form, so you can stock up on what the baby's used to or what the pediatrician recommends for this baby. The same is true of bottles and nipples. Start with what the baby is already used to if you can, and then expect that that baby may need to eat every 2 to 3 hours for the first several weeks, although that is subject to change based on a baby's sleep patterns, based on baby's growth spurts, based on baby's need for comfort, and those kinds of things. Be flexible and alert to their signs of hunger so you can start to learn their cues and then responsively meet those needs. Finding the right formula, if you don't have that already in place, and the right combo of bottles and nipples often takes a lot of trial and error, and it often changes as the baby grows and settles into good rhythms in your home. Just work hard to be observant of the baby's cues and responsive to their needs along the way, and kind of set the expectation for yourself that you're not going to get it the first time out the gate. Another big issue that parents want to talk about is sleep. And I, for one, never understood why folks say, I slept like a baby. Like that's a good thing. Babies' sleep can be noisy and restless and erratic for a very long time after they come home to you. It's exhausting for both the baby and the parents. Most babies will start to develop some predictable-ish wake and sleep patterns after a few months, and you can start to track those and start to respond to those once you see them developing. Did you know that the average newborn can sleep from 16 to 18 hours a day? Your baby will benefit from establishing a very calm, kind of loosely held, peaceful nighttime routine as early as you can manage it. But again, when you hold it loosely, then it gives you the freedom to be responsive and meet their needs. And I will tell you, it'll change just about the same time you think you've nailed it. So again, holding your expectations loosely is a good idea in these early days. While you and baby are figuring it all out, rest whenever the opportunity presents itself. Yes, that might mean dishes pile up, laundry might get behind, and you might have to choose between a shower and a nap. If these start to be stressors, try to ask your family or friends for some help. Let them bring a meal or two. Stick one in the freezer if you need to. Take them up on the call me if you need anything, and set the dirty laundry out in the front hallway for them to pick up when they come by. If this baby has experienced prenatal substance exposure, their sleep patterns might not be as predictable, nor will they settle out as soon as maybe a typical baby's would. So remember that babies exposed prenatally often struggle with exposure to light. They struggle with sensitivity to noise and temperature. They might have a harder time being soothed. And so sleep can be a really challenging thing when you've brought home a baby with prenatal exposure. Our parent training course called First 6 Months with a Baby Exposed to Opiates will be linked in the show notes for you, and it can give you more detailed information about how to support a baby through these challenges. Finally, the third thing that a lot of parents of newborns ask us about is crying. It's really hard when this baby is crying and you don't know how to help them. The most important thing to remember about babies and their crying is that this is their only way of communicating to you right now. Figuring out what baby needs, how to meet that need, and consistently responding to that need is the early foundation of forming secure attachment. And so you might feel like you're aiming at a moving target. But this is a prime example of where your effort, not necessarily your outcome, really matters. Being responsive to and present for this baby's cries tells them that they are seen, they are heard, and that they are not alone in their distress. Some babies are soothed by motion. Others are soothed by being held really close and firmly. Still others prefer patting or rubbing their backs. And sometimes different cries will need different responses. The act of trying and continuing to try signals to this baby that their voice matters and that you are with them. This is another area where accessing the support of your community can be really helpful. Focusing your time and attention on this new baby, whether you're fostering or adopting, is your priority. You can't be replaced in this dynamic of building attachment between you and the baby. But allowing others to step into the practical areas of things like meal preparations, laundry, grocery pickup, etc., will be invaluable towards allowing you to be fully present for this growing relationship between you and baby. We hope these tips can help you get into a good groove in the early days of welcoming a baby home to your family. Be patient and gracious with yourself and with the baby. It's hard to build a safe, trusting relationship with a newborn because it takes time, it takes effort, and you're exhausted. But these early days are so precious towards learning each other and learning what the baby needs from you to feel safe. If you've liked what you heard today, please leave us a rating and a review and share this podcast with a friend who might also be welcoming a new baby. We love the opportunities to strengthen your family, and the ratings and reviews and the word of mouth that you share help us get more information out to more families. Thanks for listening and have a great day.